Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio, your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Hello, this is A Woman's Prerogative. When will we let history be a lesson again? When will we learn finally from what we did in our past mistakes? This is the question that we will ask ourselves today. When will this stop? What is the end of what is going on in every generation when we think we are so right? This is the subject for A Woman's Prerogative. I introduce myself, Reverend Lydia Fougere, and I will ask you to subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV and Radio, and to Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck's channel also, who is owner of this station. She is the co-host on this show. So I will introduce her right now. She is right there waiting for us to meet her. So Dr. Kerbeck, it is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm really interested in this topic because in all of our lives, if we were to look, I'm sure there's some place where something happened to us and there was a learning, but we missed the learning, we misinterpreted the learning, and we did the same thing over again.
Oh yes. I know for a fact that my love life has been, and it's been lesson after lesson after lesson, and I repeated the same mistakes. I finally learned, but that isn't what happened. I had to learn from my mistakes. And my father, who was a wise man, had told me I would make those mistakes. What happened to you? Did you make those mistakes even if you were told not to do them?
Yes, I think sometimes we do things specifically because we're told not to do them, and then we decide to forage out on our own to prove that we can do it. But no, I've made many mistakes in my life that repeated themselves over and over. And I'm really wondering if the pandemic was sort of a clearinghouse in many ways. Obviously, many people lost their lives and their businesses, and so there are many tragic things. I think that there were some positives, which we all had to reevaluate how we were living our lives and the choices that we made, because we were all at home and all we had was time to think about what were we doing and how were we living. So I do feel for many of us that that was sort of a breakthrough period when we looked at what were some of the decisions that we made and how could we avoid making them again by making better mistakes. Oh my God, better decisions instead of more mistakes.
I made many mistakes also. And during the pandemic, I was alone. So it was something like a year and a half when we had to live on our own. I was alone, and I know that it was beneficial for me, very beneficial for me. I did not go out, and it was tragic, as you said, very tragic. But it was beneficial for me. I learned I had the time to make a point on my life, and it was a good thing. I do think the pandemic, as you said, was a good time, even if it was extremely tragic.
It was a good time, I think, to reset and look at the decisions that we were making. For me, I was with my mother and we were on an island that was completely removed. There was really very few people there at all. And at the same time, my mother had dementia. So it was kind of interesting to be with someone I really admired so much. And she was my best friend. And it was the two of us in a lockdown, me starting my business, doing this television network, and watching my mother just forget things that she knew all of her life. And it kind of stuck with me since then, in that at any moment, what we know can be taken away from us. And so taking time to reflect is really important instead of reacting, which is a lot of what we do, especially if something is done to us. We look at it as a punishment or retaliation or something that was done out of a negative emotion, which could be the case, but maybe it's actually being done for us as a lesson for us to open our eyes and evaluate how we're showing up.
The way we are showing up usually is the way we want to show up. But if we want to show up our best, we should be willing to listen. We should be willing to learn from what people are telling us. We should be happy if someone has some kind of critic towards us. We do not want them to do it from anger. We want them to do it from a place of love. If we want to better ourselves, we have to be open to having critics, and that is the way we grow. I know I grow that way, and I am a person that takes critic very well, but it is not everyone that does so. And I learned from history when someone actually has done something, I usually do not try to pull a stunt like them if they failed. What do you think of that?
I think that we are each on our own journey. And I think there is something to recognize about what we might think success is and what we think failure is. And again, it could all be opportunities for us to learn. And I think you and I being here together today on this show, we've been doing this show for a while now. We're learning about each other. We're also learning about the topics. We're learning about human behavior. And we're here in a capacity to help others to share. And so, for anyone who's watching today, maybe you've made some mistakes. Maybe if you look at your behavior and someone says, oh, she always does that. That's just the way she is. She doesn't listen to anyone. He doesn't listen to anyone. They just go ahead and do whatever it is. We can learn from those decisions. And instead of beating ourselves up, we can say, okay, I'm going to raise my hand. I did make those decisions. I am responsible and accountable for them. And here's what I learned.
I see. I will explain something that I went through when I was a nurse. I was going through a training, and there were several nurses and doctors that were going through the training. And the teacher, who was a doctor, explained something that was extremely difficult to understand, I have to admit. And then that doctor said, I would like for everyone that did not understand to raise their hands. And I was the only one that raised her hand. So the person looked at me and said, "You did not understand, Nurse Lydia." I said, "No, I'm sorry. I will have to have more explanations. Maybe it is me, maybe it is the way it is explained to me, but I did not understand." So the doctor said, "Okay, so since everyone understood, I would like for someone to stand up and explain to Nurse Lydia what she did not understand." We are talking about a class of about 45 people, and no one had understood. I was the only one that was willing to say I had not understood. So we learn from past mistakes, but we have to be willing to learn and admit that we have made mistakes. So they had made the mistake of lying on what they had learned. What do you think about this lesson?
I think that's an important lesson, and thank you for being candid and sharing that. One thing that I've observed over time, and I see this repeatedly, something will happen to someone and they blame it on someone or something else. And I see this, it's interesting. It usually happens to the same people over and over and over again. And they're constantly looking to throw the blame on someone else. So in the scenario that you just described, being able to say, you know what, I don't understand. It's not working for me. But people don't want to say that because they're afraid they're going to be perceived in a certain way, which is their own insecurity. And it's also when things don't go right for us, instead of raising our hand and saying, you know what, I thought I was prepared. I thought I had anticipated all potential outcomes, but I didn't think of this. I need some help. That's much different statement than, oh, the reason why this didn't work out is because of him, because of her, because nobody's going to help me. And coming from a victim mindset instead of a mature mindset saying, you know what, I didn't anticipate this and I really could use some help.
I love the way you say, "I could use some help," because so many people do not say they need help when they actually need help. They try to do it and make a mistake by trying to do it so much. So when someone needs help and they do not ask, they are in a place of ego. They do not have the humility to actually say, "I need help." It takes a lot of humility to admit that we need help. We have to step over our ego. We have to admit that we do not know how to do it. We do not understand the subject or whatever is the matter. We have to walk over ourselves and admit that we need someone else. That is what people have trouble doing. They do not want to look feeble. But being feeble is not admitting. Do you think that is right?
I think it's a matter of perspective. I think there is an innate instinct in us that we don't want to be perceived as fools, foolish. Why doesn't she know that? Why doesn't he know that? It's kind of the same premise when someone says, I have a dumb question to ask. Well, no question's dumb, but if you don't ask, then you know the outcome because you're not going to bother to take the time. So I think speaking up and saying we don't understand something or I need help or this is unclear, I think as long as it is done in a respectful manner as opposed to an accusatory manner. Well, this is all your fault that I don't understand this. You didn't teach this very well. You don't know what you're talking about. That's very different than, I don't understand what you just shared. Could you explain it in a different way? In fact, I've had someone say that to me when I was teaching a class. Could you explain what you just said in another way? Absolutely. Thank you for asking. It shows someone's listening, that they're interested, that they actually care. And as someone who is teaching in a teacher capacity or even in a nursing capacity, you want to know that people are listening. That's important, because when you're there to bring value, you want to make sure you're connecting with people. But if you find that you're continuously not understanding many things, there might be something else going on. Maybe you're not able to focus. Maybe there's something that's really weighing on your mind that you just can't unburden yourself from it for the moment to take in new information, because we only have so much space.
Yes, we only have so much space. That is true. And I know for a fact that when we are nurses, we cannot make mistakes. And we have to know what we are talking about. We have to know the subject. When we are doctors, we are talking about people's lives. In marketing, we are talking about people's money. Money is extremely important also. So whether it is me, whether it is you, we cannot afford to make a lot of mistakes. We have to be ready and we have to know our subject. But the thing is that when a person does not want to admit there is fear, vanity that comes into account. There is also the desire for power, which is the same in the past as it was today, because since the Bronze Age, humans have been the same, only technology has changed. The human mind thinks the same. They just think they are more advanced, but they still do the same mistakes. History repeats because the human mind lets its ego overcome its problems.
Yes, I agree. I was thinking of something that happened to me recently, and I'd love you to give your input on it. But someone asked me what I do for a living. So I explained. And then after I explained, the person said, you know what you would probably be good at? And I said, no. And this person said, did you ever think of having a podcast? And I looked at the person and I said, thanks for the question. What is it that you think I do? I have no idea. And I explained, okay, do you own a television? So I explained about the television. I said, you see people on the TV. I said, I'm one of those people that's on a TV. And I've created a platform where other people are on a TV. And so the person said, well, what about a podcast? And I said, okay, could you explain what is a podcast to you? And the person couldn't even explain that. So I got to the point, originally I felt frustrated because I thought, why aren't you listening? It's pretty, to me, it's so obvious what it is that I do, but it's not obvious to other people. So instead of having some kind of distance between myself and this person, I was asking them to really think. And what ended up happening was they were getting frustrated because they had no idea they didn't know what I was doing for a living. And no matter how many different ways I tried to explain it, providing education, teaching, they still couldn't understand what I was doing. So in terms of history repeating itself, there have to be times when we walk away as well. And we say, you know what, let's just agree to disagree. Obviously, you don't understand what I'm doing and I'm not able to convey to you, but I don't want you to be upset about it. Let's not even give it another thought. And because otherwise people can be resentful and angry and say, you just don't care. You're just not listening. And this happens a lot in relationships because we can't be inside the mind of someone else to understand what people comprehend and what they don't, especially when we come from other cultures. And recently I had a conversation with someone, and I think this really ties into what we're talking about today. And the person was sharing that women have come so far, but we've lost our femininity. And because we've lost our femininity, we are acting in our masculine energy, and we've forgotten why we need men. And I said, "Oh, I'm very interested. Can you continue?" And the person said, "Well, women weren't meant to be in the work world. Women were meant to be cooking and cleaning and having children and being in the home." And so I could feel myself getting a little upset, but I was thinking to myself, I wonder why I'm getting upset. So I was just continuing to listen. And finally, the woman said, the reason why there's so much upsetment in this world today is because women are not in the place where they need to be, which is in the home. And so history is repeating itself because women feel like they want more rights, but at the same time, they want to know why a man's not opening the door and why relationships aren't working out. So it gave me a lot of pause to think. What are your thoughts about that?
I think we have gone a long way. I certainly do not agree 100% with what she said. I do not totally disagree neither, but I do not totally agree. The thing for me is that we do not belong in our homes. We are allowed to be part of the workforce. We are intelligent beings. We are not physically the same as a man. We are not emotionally the same as a man. We have different purposes, but I do not agree on the fact that I should be home raising children while my spouse would be building a life, a professional life, and I would be left behind, because this comes to what happens if there is a divorce and you have no work experience whatsoever. I would like to know what she would think of that if she were left behind without experience whatsoever.
I think it's something interesting to ponder because I really didn't agree with it at all. She was almost making a statement about the fact that I'm working all the time. You just asked me what I did this weekend, and I'm usually working, but it's by choice. No one says I have to do this. I have my own business, and I always want to take it to another level. And it's just like with my education. I'm in the Wharton School for the Chief Strategy Officer. Did I have to sign up for that? No, I applied, and I love it. It's a year long. So I'm doing what I love to do. But that doesn't mean it's for everyone. But I also think when we're looking back on history, do we as women want to go back to where we used to be, where we're fighting for the right to vote and we're fighting for equal wages and equal rights? I don't think so. So to me, I'm not going to be raising my hand and signing up to give away my autonomy so that I can have a partner. I think it has to be two people who are happy with who they are, and they come together 100% each, as opposed to 50 and 50, because then you have half a person with half a person. So to change who we are just so we can have a partner, to me, that seems like we're looking backwards, but that's just my opinion.
Your opinion is extremely good, because the thing is, I did not change to have a partner. I was 15 years alone. I did not change to have a partner. my partner took me the way I am, did not try to change me. I did not try to change him. I I am an author. I do shows that act they are on television, and I do several things. I am a mother also and a grandmother. So I have several roles and I fit into all of my roles. And no one would be able to convince me to abandon my roles. That I have a time for each role, and I would not change myself for a man. And if I had met a man that would have asked me to change something, it would have been a no. Why would have been unhappy to make someone else happy? That is the way I think. I want to be happy. I'm allowed.
You are. You've every right to be happy. And I think when we are asked to change ourselves to be something that someone else wants us to be, that we're really going backwards. And I said this earlier today on another show, but I have to say it again. There's a series on Netflix called, I forget, it's something about the worst ex. And it's a series where people are sharing stories about their ex and how there were all these red flags about changing the way you look, about controlling your behavior, about what you're allowed to do, leaving the house, not allowed the house. And in every case that they're showing on this series, people's lives were in danger. And in some cases, people were killed. And so, is every situation like that? No, of course not. But when we are asked to change so many things about ourselves that we came to the relationship with, to me, that's a red flag saying, okay, historically, we were supposed to be like this. But when you come to someone as a complete person, as we are, and you're looking for someone to share time with or have experiences with or create memories with, I believe for me, it would have to be someone saying, I understand you work 7 days a week. I understand you work out every day. I understand you only eat certain food. They'd have to say, I'm going to take you the way you are. I'm going to be happy for the time we can spend together, instead of, oh, well, this is a no and that's a red flag and this isn't going to fit. And that happens a lot. And then people succumb to it. And then they look back and go, wow, I saw this. I saw myself shrinking, becoming smaller and smaller and smaller until I just wanted to hide or run away. So I think before we make decisions like that, are we truly happy, or are we compromising so we don't have to be alone? And if we can't be alone, you were alone for a long time, I'm alone. Alone is not a bad thing. There's a lot to learn when you're alone, but to some people, it's an absolute no. And I'll turn it back to you. But we've seen situations, we know people who they lose their partner, their spouse, and within 6 months, they're with somebody else. Boom, no grieving process, no getting to learn yourself, right on to someone else.
Yes, you have a point. I call those married widows, or I call those, married widowers, because the thing is that they are with someone, but they are alone, but they are scared of living on their own. So they rather be with someone that does not fit their mindset than leaving to be happy. So I call those the married widows, married widowers. That is my term, and I know many of them. They do not want to take a chance at life because they feel safety is in not being happy. They are a lot more scared of leaving than choosing happiness. What do you think of this?
I think choosing happiness is something that we all have an option to do. Many cases, we feel guilt-ridden. Maybe we feel traumatized because we've seen people in our life who are not happy. Maybe we are afraid we'll lose the person we're with because in order to be happy, that might mean being our authentic selves. And somebody might not like that. We talked about this on other programs, but when we find our way to what it is we're really passionate about, I think there's probably a percentage of people who find it right away, but for most of us, we don't. When we actually find it and we're on the journey, that doesn't mean that the people around us in our inner circle are really happy for us. Because for a lot of people, we go through our entire lives going, I don't know why I'm here. I'm not really sure what my purpose is, but I know I'm going to go to work. I'm going to come home. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It's the same thing. And I'm all about structure and discipline. I really believe in that. But I think it has to be structure and discipline for things that are bringing us joy. Because if we're not enjoying it, then that frustration and disappointment is going to be unexpressed and it's going to show up in some way or another.
In disease.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. And as an example, I have ulcerative colitis for 35 years. And I shared before I was raped. And I was basically told it was my fault because I shouldn't have gone where I went. And it doesn't matter because it was so long ago, but I kept it inside. And all the time I thought, you know what? I shouldn't have gone there. I should have known better. But the man was much older than I was. And to this day and time, I really believe that that's why I got ulcerative colitis, is because I suppressed all of those feelings. And I wouldn't want that to happen to someone else. I'm not sorry that I have it because it's been quite a journey, the things that I've been able to do in my life and the experiences, the speaking engagements. But I feel like when we are not being true to ourselves and actually looking at the situation and just saying, oh, that's the way it's always been. My mother did that and my grandmother did that. And so it's okay. I'm just going to keep doing the way that it's been done. But it doesn't bring us joy.
Yes. But saying that it does not matter because it was a long time ago is serious, because it always does matter. Whatever the time frame is, it happened to me, it happened to you, but no matter the time frame, it still happened. We learned from it. We felt guilty at some point. We are not guilty, but at some point we made ourselves sick by feeling so guilty of convincing ourselves that we took a bad decision. I was told that my brother was waiting for me. That is why I went to the place that I went, and it happened to me. No matter the reason it happened, no matter the time, it is still serious, and it is not your fault, and it is not my fault. So history does repeat itself, but the problem is that history repeats itself in the fact that women always feel the guilt when they are assaulted. What do you think of that?
I think, first of all, to the point that you just were making, when I said it was so long ago, whatever the comment was, I think I just meant in reference to the TV show, because we only have so much time to talk about it. And I have dealt with it. I went to therapy. I've written books about it. And I hope that anyone out there who's going through something, that you do find a way to express yourself in a healthy way, talk to someone, get some counseling. Writing a book is always cathartic. I've interviewed enough people who've written books about really serious things. And I think at the same time, I don't believe that any of us are going to get out of this thing we call life without having to deal with obstacles and situations that are unpleasant and that are life-changing. And we can ask all day, well, why did this happen? Well, why did that happen? A lot of times things happen because we were where we were. We physically were somewhere and were exposed to a person or a situation. And had we not been there, if you think about how many stories you'll hear about people who were supposed to take a flight, and that was the flight that was doomed, or 9/11, they were supposed to be there. I mean, you hear these stories all the time, and for whatever reason, people didn't go there. And it could even be the other day I was out driving, and two different times, people were backing up, and I was like, beep, beep, beep. And I thought, oh my gosh, like 1 second later, and I would have been hit. So everything, I believe, is timing. But when we are in a situation that ends up in a way that we don't want it to be, and we wish that we could have done something differently, I believe that there is some kind of lesson there, that even if it wasn't our fault, even if we didn't wish it, that we're supposed to learn something from it. It's not a punishment. It's sort of an enlightenment that, okay, I'm supposed to learn something. And maybe that's just being very positive and trying to find the good in things. I don't know.
You found the good in that thing because you have been able to explain to other women. You have been able to write a book. You have been able to open your world to other women. So that helps a lot because of your book, there are probably many women that felt a lot better. So you have changed their history in writing your book.
Well, thank you.
This is the way that, yes, you use your history to rewrite their history.
I think it's always good when people talk about it. And the funny thing is, I'll just say this because we're running out of time. I didn't even have the book I'm talking to you about. And it just so turns out that I ordered one copy that came the other day. It's called Adversity to Awesome. This was my second book. And this details the story of my rape and also other women who came forward, and men, to share things that had happened to them that they've overcome. So I think it's really important that we express ourselves because, as I mentioned, something happens to all of us. And I guess there's different degrees of severity, but being able to talk about it gives people courage, I think, to come forward and share their story. So I want to thank you for having me as your guest again today. I really enjoyed this. And I do believe that next week we will be filming at a different day and time, but I'm sure we'll be able to let our audience know. So thank you, Reverend.
Thank you. My pleasure. So I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio, and to Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck's channel, and to buy our books. So thank you, and see you next week at a different day. Namaste.
How much of your value have you been giving away? Saying yes when the answer should have been no? Lowering your price to secure the opportunity? Giving more while receiving less? Over time, it adds up. Until one moment brings clarity, you've been giving away your value. This is not about working harder. This is not about doing more. It's about boundaries. It's about pricing. It's about respect. From Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck comes a direct and necessary message. Stop over-delivering. Stop underpricing your expertise. Stop negotiating against yourself. Because when you recognize your value, everything changes. Stop giving away your value. Boundaries, pricing, and the business of respect. Available now wherever fine books are sold and on Amazon. A film by USA Global TV and Radio. Executive producer Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Videographer and cinematic production Paul Garcia. Voiceover by Ed Vargas. Stop giving it away. Start owning it.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram-Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at USAGlobalTV.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.